it seemed like we talked about it a little bit. Like the franchise really like just took off, like just jumped off a cliff when it comes to interest after 2001 because of JP3. JP3 really seemed to just blech, really like just do
It
the
it
franchise in.
I've always said whether you like the movie or not, there's no denying it killed the Jurassic franchise for over a decade. So
Right, and it seemed the franchise was almost beyond resurrection after JP3. To be 100%
pretty
honest.
much, yeah.
Well, welcome to Dino Park Media. My name is Samuel, and today I have with me Noah Meskimen from the Instagram account Jurassic Fantastic, and he's an incredible guy. He actually is huge into the Jurassic films and dinosaur films in general, with tons of posts about dinosaurs and really anything that you might appreciate when it comes to dinosaurs or Jurassic Park. But why don't you go ahead and say hello, Noah?
Hello, everyone. I hope all you Jurassic fans out there are doing okay. And thank you so much for having me on, Samuel. It's a pleasure to be on Dino Park Media and geek out about what I consider to be the most interesting chapter of JP history. I think we would all agree.
Yes, the interesting period of Jurassic Park history in question, Jurassic Park 3. And honestly, we need to answer the question, what happened? What happened with Jurassic Park 3? Because I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's one of those movies where, yeah, I mean, everybody wanted to love it, but there's just something that holds most people back. There are plenty of people that love JP3, and I'm not going
Right.
to try to hate on them or anything, but just objectively, when you look at the franchise, there was a drop off in interest of the franchise after JP3, and I do believe it's for a good reason. There's reason for it.
Definitely, yeah.
So let's go ahead and jump in with our first question here, Noah. What are your personal thoughts on Jurassic Park 3? Did you like it or did you hate it?
Well, when I was very young and I started getting into the Jurassic films, Jurassic Park 3 was my personal favorite, simply because of the fact that it had a lot of dinosaurs in it. Because at that age, I was still in that phase of, I only watch these films for the dinosaurs, and Jurassic Park 3 basically has tons of dinosaur action all throughout its 90-minute run. So it was my favorite for the longest time. But as the years have gone on, of course, my opinion has gradually changed, and I've started looking at these films more critically and objectively. And yeah, JP3 has a lot of problems, especially when looking at it within the context of Jurassic Park history now. It definitely has a lot of problems. I still don't consider it the worst. I still think Fallen Kingdom's the worst, but of course that's just my personal opinion. But it's definitely fallen in my rank. I'd say I put it right above Fallen Kingdom.
Yeah, and actually, on my personal opinion, I mean, I would actually flip those two. Like, I honestly believe that JP3 is, and some people might hate me in the comments for this, but I honestly think JP3 is the lowest ranked JP film in my personal opinion, because of the fact that at least Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom attempted a plot and actually paid off a little bit of a plot, even if it wasn't the best one. And JP3, I
Right.
feel like it's paper thin.
It's definitely that for sure. Like, even
Yeah.
I'll admit that. So
I mean, the idea that the whole movie happened because you have a couple of dumb tourists going like, "Yo, we found these really sketchy people that do dino rides, on a parasail. Let's go and try it out, And then like, oh my word! And they end up kidnapping this really famous paleontologist who's never even been to the second island. Like, all
right.
of it, like, part of me wants to make sense of it, and it's like, okay, I guess maybe, but it's too much. Almost, my suspension of disbelief is being stretched too thin at this point. But
Right. I completely understand the hate for JP3. I will not try to defend it that much, but despite its problems, I fully admit nostalgia plays a huge part in me having a soft spot for JP3, because I grew up because every Jurassic fan grows up in a different era of the film. Some grew up in the era of the first film, some with The Lost World. I grew up in the JP3 era, with all the JP3 merchandise and the marketing. So I will always have a soft spot for JP3, despite all of the issues that you just said, which are legitimate. Like, those are legitimate problems with the film.
Yeah, actually, to be honest, I also grew up during or at least was introduced to Jurassic Park during the JP3 era. I was born in '94, but and so some people might go like, oh, well, you could have hopped in at the Lost World, in the Lost World hype, but it wasn't until JP3 where I started getting into it, because some of my friends when I was a kid had Lost World toys, and then it was in 2001 or 2 when there was JP3 toys on the shelves at toy stores. I went into KB Toys with my grandma, and we ended up getting this Dr. Grant on a motorcycle with a Velociraptor.
Yeah, some of those JP3 toys, looking back, are just so crazy, because I remember as a kid looking at those and thinking, I don't remember that happening in the movie. Like,
yeah, I think we're stretching the truth a little bit here, but it was a really cool, amazing toy, though. I mean, I will give it that. And then also, I got into some of the computer games. Like, there was Jurassic Park Dino Battles, there was Jurassic Park 3, or Jurassic Park Dino Defender.
Danger Zone. That was one that Dino Defender and Danger Zone were the 2 JP3 games I played all the time on my computer, all the time.
Yep, and I mean, I played a lot of that too, and
then of course Operation Genesis came out around that time too. So,
oh man, I wish I would have gotten into Operation Genesis, but I remember seeing it, I remember wanting it, but by the time that I had become aware of it, my grandma's computer was dead, so I wasn't able to play my Jurassic Park games anymore. But I ultimately, see, the thing is, JP3 was actually a lot of fun for me, especially because of the idea when I was a kid. I enjoyed the dinosaurs mostly. You know, Jurassic Park 1 was actually my least favorite because of the fact that I wasn't as much into the story as much as into like whatever action I could find. And so like,
yeah, and that's, like I said, that's the reason I loved it so much too, was because it was just constant dinosaur action. Like you said, the plot was paper thin, which for a 5-year-old kid watching JP3 for the first time, that's perfect. Paper thin plot, tons of dinosaur action. I'm in. Like,
exactly.
And it's not too long either. It's not even 2 hours, so it can keep a kid's attention span. So
exactly. And then there's even Barney in there. I mean, like, come on,
right? Like,
perfect storm. Yeah. But I mean, ultimately, I think when I got older, and then when I got back into the franchise when I was in high school, I look back at JP3 and I'm like, holy crap, I actually enjoyed this. But but the thing is, I still enjoy it. I still watch it. If like when I'm on my JP3 kicks that happen usually in the spring, late spring, early summer of every year, I have to go through the JP series. I watch them all of them, including JP3, and I still watch it, but I still like laugh at it. The first time I showed it to my wife, she like when we're watching it, and you know, like when you first hear the when like,
oh gosh, yeah,
around, the Spinosaurus is just standing there, and so like when the reveal happens and you just see the Spinosaurus just standing there like looking at them, my wife, watching it for the first time, burst out laughing. She's just like, are you kidding me? And I was just like, no, I am completely with you, but this is hilarious that I get to watch it for the first time with you, you know, like your first time. So it was like, it's just, there's so many surreal things that happen in the movie, but
oh, for sure.
We can keep on ragging on it, but we also need to talk about some more pointed questions here too. So let's go on to our second question here. Story-wise, do you think that the movie went in a good direction? I mean, I think we already kind of established that, but also as like a follow-up question, what else could they have done if they didn't do the story from the actual film?
Well, to answer the first question, I'd make the argument JP3 didn't really go in any direction, really.
I agree.
Because, you know, JP3 came out during that awkward phase where they didn't really know how to carry on the series after the Lost World. It's like, well, where do we go from here? Because before Lost World was rewritten, JP3 was meant to be the culmination film of the so-called Jurassic trilogy, where it was going to build up to dinosaurs on the mainland. That is what JP3 was originally going to be. Before Spielberg, of course, jumped the gun and brought the T-Rex to the mainland in San Diego at the end of the Lost World. So when that happened, it sort of put JP3 in a box. Like,
Yeah.
where do we go from here? Like, because they obviously still wanted to do a third movie. They just didn't know where to take it. And it shows in the final product because it doesn't really go anywhere. Like,
Nope.
nope. It doesn't really tie into the first two films, and it doesn't really tie into the next two films. So it's, like I said, did it go in a good or bad direction? I'd say it went in its own direction.
Yeah. Did it go left or right? It went
Yeah.
up. I mean, we don't really know what happened with this.
It's a very self-contained story and direction, pretty much.
That's a very good way of putting it. Which I think another way of wording what you just said is almost inconsequential story. Because like really there's no lasting effect except on Dr. Grant.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, we realize that there's a Spinosaurus. So like there's illegally cloned dinosaurs on the island. Okay, great. But what are we doing with that information? In fact, really, nothing has really been done with that information since then. We have some like more expounding upon that information with the dinosaur protection website, but like other than that,
yeah,
other than that, not much is happening.
Yeah, and to answer the second question, piggybacking off that, one of the things they could have done a lot better was, explain a lot more, like, why are there different species or subspecies of raptors? Why are the pteranodons different than the ones seen in the Lost World? Why is there a Spinosaurus all of a sudden? Why does this part of Isla Sorna look different than the redwoods in the Lost World? Like, so many questions. And then, something like Injun's list being brought up all of a sudden. Like, JP3 is that film that gives us a lot of questions but no answers. Like,
yeah.
And that's one thing they could have done a lot better, is definitely explain a lot more.
Well, you're 100% correct. I mean, even to the point where they did a little bit with Lost World too, where they're writing some of the stuff while they were shooting it. I mean, the whole San Diego scene happened. They wrote that. I know that Steven Spielberg says that he had it in his mind when they were writing the film originally, but they didn't actually put it into practice until they were already in production.
Right.
And same thing happened, but that on a whole new level happened with JP3, where they were writing. They had however many different endings while they were in production. That's a.
Well, I mean, they completely rewrote the script 5 weeks before they were going to start shooting. Like, it's just it's crazy. Like,
and then also, like, when you look at the scene specifically with the embryonics lab, actually, Matt and I just went over this in a recent video too, but they were actually supposed to go into like what happened here. There were supposed to be a lot of questions and mysteries that were asked and then paid off from the embryonics lab that aren't even touched upon. Basically, it's supposed to be like, hey, you see this, but we don't see anything in particular. We just see that there's some dinosaur embryos that are semi-developed in these vats, in these giant tubes. We see a bunch of hatchery, like little hatchery warmers all across the factory floor there. But
it's almost like, they were like, well, we're just going to put all this cool stuff in, and whoever does Jurassic Park 4, they can worry about answering it and trying to make sense of it. So,
yep. And unfortunately, we still don't really have any answers. But I'm hoping
really.
I'm hoping that Dominion will be able to provide a little bit of a rounding off, if you will, of that.
I hope so too. Because I would definitely like some answers, some confirmed canon answers.
Right. Oh my word. I think we deserve that. The fandom deserves at least that. But
because we've been speculating for about 20 years now. So
yeah. So please, Trevorrow, something. But going back to, I think, because honestly, I'm just going to say right now, I don't think that the movie went in a good direction. I think that, like you said, it just was, it didn't add anything to the franchise. It didn't really add anything to our characters. Dr. Grant now hates dinosaurs more than he did before, I guess. I mean,
which I thought was such a jarring decision when I hear the behind the scenes and Joe Johnson's like, oh no, he doesn't want to go back. I'm like, well, that kind of conflicts with the Grant we saw in the first one. Because if anything, I would think Grant would want to go back there and study these animals. So that was just a very jarring character decision, at least in my opinion.
I can see what you're saying, especially with you being a person that's very into paleontology, into paleoanthropology. Like, you're a person that's very interested in wanting to learn more. for me, looking at it from like because I'm not necessarily a great storyteller, but I do enjoy creative writing and making stories. And so from a storyteller's perspective, it provides a good arc with the idea of trauma. Trauma is something that you don't want to make light of. It's not something that you want to just completely make fun of, because it's just a real thing that so many people can sympathize or empathize with. But that's the reason that trauma is actually something that is very useful in storytelling, because a lot of people can sympathize with how trauma makes crazy effects on a person's personality and character. And
Right.
so I thought that it was actually a very good choice. But as far as this movie, the movie just seems to just like it doesn't really provide any sort of like holistic arc to him. In fact, it's just really more of a
not
trajectory,
really.
just more like, hey, I hated dinosaurs at the beginning, I hate them even more now. It's really what it comes down to for him.
But obviously he wasn't too traumatized, because the way they got him to go was the same reason they got him to go in the first movie. So
Give me them
all it
dollar
took was a
bills.
check, you know.
That's right. Yeah, I can write zeros all day, all over this check. And it's like, oh yeah, you can. Come on, give me some more of that money. But okay, but I mean, which is totally meme-worthy and funny in its own right. But like, let's go to the second part though. What else could they have done? Because honestly, I do believe that there are some other stories that they could have done with JP3. But then again, I think that if they would have done different stories with JP3, there are some stories that would have negated and made it impossible for the possibility of Jurassic World happening in 2015. So do you have any ideas what else they would have done with JP3?
Well, I know that several of their drafts before the final film, were definitely a lot more interesting. Like, I remember there was one where Grant and Billy were investigating a series of dinosaur murders on the mainland, which was sort of a callback to the first two novels.
Yes.
And I definitely think that would have been a very interesting way to take it. Also, even though Spielberg kind of jumped the gun on The Lost World, I still think they should have just gone with having dinosaurs on the mainland, because I feel like that's what this had been building up to, was, this fear that these, as Grant puts it, genetically engineered theme park monsters will eventually get to the mainland. Like, it's inevitable that it's going to happen. So I think that would have been a great way to take it. And I think back when they were doing it, it was going to be called like Jurassic Park Extinction or something like that. It wasn't just going to be simply Jurassic Park 3, because it was supposed to be like the culmination film that the previous two had been leading up to. So that would have definitely been a good way to take it.
Right. But I mean, dude, you can't deny the fact that they had to put that title card in there with the 3 claw marks. The shink.
Right. Right.
You can't deny the fact that they had to put that in there. So
of course.
Yeah.
They
get rid of
to,
Extinction. We need to do with this 3/claw mark. I hate title cards. I'm sorry. I like title cards that are simple. I don't like the ones that are just like, let's make it super cheesy and CGI. That's why I hate Fallen Kingdom's title card. With all the lava and something like.
Oh yeah.
Great.
And the over the top choir that plays, it just doesn't fit, in my opinion. Yeah. Like, and they show the logo. That's so weird. Like, none of the films before this have shown the logo, so it's so weird.
Yeah, not the entire logo. You're right. Not the
right.
Well, let's go back into what else they could have done. I completely agree with you. I think that they should have gone to the mainland, especially in light of the fact that you just told me that, because I didn't know this before about the JP3 previous scripts, that Grant and Billy were supposed to be investigating some of these dinosaur killings on mainland. See, that's the way you could have done it, especially after The Lost World. See, The Lost World, it told everybody. It was all over the news. By the way, these dinosaur islands that Malcolm had made a big deal about and lost his credentials over because he was, quote unquote, disproven to be he was proven to be a liar. By the way, those things exist now.
You could have explained it to where it was like, compies or raptors had gotten on the boat with the T-Rex on it and escaped into San Diego. Like, it would have been that simple or something like that.
You could have done that. I think that, I know that Clayton Fioriti hates the idea of mercenaries getting onto the islands and stuff like that. But they teased it a little bit in season 2 of Camp Cretaceous, right? Where they had some poachers. Why can't they have some some dinosaur wranglers that try to get onto the islands? They feel like we got this thing. We got this big old animal. We're gonna get a huge payday. and then somehow it gets like they somehow get a raptor, and then it like escapes when it's on the mainland. That would have been a way of doing it too, you know?
Yeah, and you could have had Grant be basically fill in for Darius in that situation where he's like, no, you shouldn't kill these animals. Like they should be protected. Like that would have been a great way to take. You could have written the three mercenary characters we have in the film, Nash, Udesky, and Cooper, and made them the bad guys, the mercenaries going out there and killing these dinosaurs. Like
that's Cooper. Yeah, I mean, like,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, you could have, but I mean, these quote unquote mercenaries that we have within JP3 end up being just cannon fodder. They're jokes. I mean, are they?
They're pretty. I always whenever I watch JP3, I'm like, oh look, it's the Three Stooges.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great description. I mean, they walk around. We got big gun. That's all that they need. And then they die right away.
Yeah, Cooper's a professional. He can handle himself.
Obviously, yes. He douses himself in barbecue sauce. I can handle myself. But moving on to our next question, though. So, like, story-wise, I think we both agree that JP3.
There are so many ways you could have done it better.
Yes, but let's go into dinosaur-wise, dinosaur-specific. Why do you think that the dinosaurs were good that were featured in the film? I mean, they had some callbacks with like Brachiosaurus that was a little bit evolved upon with like the red crest on the males and stuff like that. But then also they had the Ankylosaurus. They brought that in for the first time. But what about also specifically the Spinosaurus? Do you think that was a good choice for the lead dinosaur, quote unquote lead dinosaur in the film?
Yes, I have always been a fan of the JP3 Spinosaurus, and just to give some context, I have never been someone who was on the, well, are you Team Rex or Team Spino? Like I don't get involved in that stuff. I'm a T-Rex fan at heart, and I always will be, but I've always loved and defended the JP3 Spinosaurus. And I thought specifically with its role in the film, it did a really good job. They did a really good job of portraying it as this big monster. Like it's not even a dinosaur. It's a monster that could, as Jack Horner says, it could literally cause an extinction on the island. Mm-hmm. So I think I love the JP3 Spinosaurus. I thought it was a great addition. And as someone who is a T-Rex fan, I actually was fine with them changing the big bad dinosaur because we had already gotten T-Rex for 2 movies. So it was a nice change of pace to see a new big bad dinosaur. And that's why I'm excited for the Giga in Dominion as well. Like I'm all for having other big theropods besides T-Rex be the big bad villain. So I've always loved the Spinosaurus. Am I going to be disappointed if it doesn't come back in Dominion? No, but I still love it nonetheless.
I don't need to see it in Dominion. I just hope that they recognize that it existed. Because because they haven't touched upon it in the Jurassic World films at all. And like in the book, Claire, the evolution of Claire, they talk about Jurassic Park 3 Velociraptors, but Spinosaurus is never mentioned. No. So I wish that they would just at least say, hey, by the way, this was a thing. Maybe it died. Maybe it's not here anymore. Who cares? Maybe the aliens took it, but at least it existed. I just want to know that at least it was there. But I agree with you. I think that the Spinosaurus was a great addition. I wish that they would. The only thing that I wish that they would have done with it is actually expound on why it existed.
Yeah, that's I'm with you on there, because like I said, it just sort of shows up out of nowhere, and it's like, well, where was this thing in the Lost World? Right,
and the only reason that they give for it is, it's not on InGen's list. What else they were up to around here, and that's it. That's the whole thing of like, oh, the Spinosaurus exists because we don't know why it's here. Like what? That doesn't make any sense.
It almost makes you wish they would just be honest and be like, well, we put it in because it's cool. So
yeah.
That would have been a better answer than the cryptic, it wasn't on InGen's list. So
right, just Grant looks straight into the camera and goes, our writers thought this was a great decision, and then just keeps on going on with the movie. But our writers thought this would be cool. But I think that the Spinosaurus, if they would have capitalized on the secrets, the mysteries, this is kind of important, like from the embryonics lab. If they would have capitalized on that, and then also given rise to the reason of why the Spinosaurus exists, I think that would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
because that would have actually given the Spinosaurus a little bit grounding and anchoring within the Jurassic franchise. So many people love it already. Like you said, you're a huge fan of it. I enjoy it for what it is, but I honestly I like the Indominus Rex more than the Spino from JP3. I like the I-Rex from Jurassic World more than the Spinosaurus, because the Spinosaurus doesn't really have any backstory. I mean, at the time, they were just kind of the creators of the show, of the movie. We're just kind of going like, oh yeah, this is a Spinosaurus. Like, this is what we think that the Spinosaurus looked like back in the day, and so we're gonna throw it in here. This is the Spinosaurus dinosaur that we cloned.
Yeah, that's another thing. We still don't really have a definitive confirmation whether it's supposed to be an accurate Spinosaurus within the Jurassic universe, or if it's a hybrid. I mean, we've gotten little hints, like Wu saying, there was an accident we left on Sorno, and we can assume he's talking about the Spinosaurus, but I've also said he could be talking about the JP3 Pteranodon. So
I mean, yeah, because those things are thick birds. They're thick boys. They're crazy scary. But
I believe it was hyped up to be like, it really was hyped up to be like this big accident that Engine kept secret, because the marketing for it has those cheesy trailer narrations like an experiment gone wrong and stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, so like I'm pretty sure that the Spinosaurus was meant to be something a little bit more, but they never capitalized on that. So the reason I like the I-Rex more is because, there's a reason for this thing to exist, at least. We know where it came from, and we know why it's basically, like a monster movie type of a monster, where it's like always seeking to kill you, whereas the Spinosaurus, if this was cloned and supposed to be like, quote unquote, an accurate Spinosaurus, then why does it have this incessant need to kill?
And why does it constantly follow this tiny group of humans throughout the entire movie? Like,
exactly, it's like, I smell plot. I smell a movie that I need to be a part of, And then he's just like going and finding these humans all the time. But but I think that him being that this him, we say it like we know what it is, but like I think the Spinosaurus is a very, very, very interesting hybrid dinosaur. I call it a hybrid automatically, because I'm really hoping that they go back and address that.
I've always been on the side that it's a hybrid, but I know some people out there who say no, this is supposed to be an accurate Spinosaurus within the Jurassic universe, and I'm like, well, I'm waiting for that confirmation. So
right, let's somebody please just at least address this. But as far as the other dinosaurs, I think that the Pteranodons, you brought them up a little bit ago, I think that was an incredible scene, and that was actually one of the best parts of the movie, was the Jurassic Park the JP3 Pteranodon sequence. You know what I'm saying? Because that one actually has some sort of like story. Like, if that was it's like, if you would have just taken that one scene out of the movie and you put that in as a short film by itself, that had its own complete story. If you began with the idea that, I want to call him Buddy the Elf, Billy. Excuse me. Wow. So Billy, if you start with the idea that he stole the eggs, that's the reason that these raptors are hunting them, and then he has to go through this redemption arc of like, you know what? I did this to everybody, so I'm gonna go and try to save the kid by going out there amongst all of these pteranodons that want to kill me on this parasail, with this sailing parachute. That would have been amazing. Like, and like, that would have been a fantastic little individual short film if you would just had that by itself, because you have characters, you have a character that did a bad thing, and then you have a character that wants redemption.
But of course they kind of ruin it at the end by having him still be alive randomly, like.
Yeah, and I mean, we can go into that later, but I mean, just by itself, the Pteranodon scene is, I think it's actually brilliant, and I honestly think it's a high point for the entire series, but it's just in one of, well, my opinion, the worst movie. So I don't know. What do you think about the Pteranodons, though?
Yeah, like you said, a lot of people say that's the best scene in the movie, and deservedly so. It's a fantastic sequence, and we've always, producer Kathleen Kennedy had said they got so much fan mail saying we want to see flying, quote unquote, flying dinosaurs in the Jurassic series, and they finally got it, and they did a really good job. Like, I've always said, the JP3 Pteranodon scene, that's the scariest scene in the movie to me. Like, those JP3 Pteranodons are absolutely frightening. Yeah. Like, and they're vicious. Like I said, Joe Johnston says in the behind the scenes, they were an experiment that just went horribly wrong. Like, they're not supposed to be the peaceful pteranodons we see at the end of the Lost World. These are just some kind of, same with Spinosaurus, some kind of monster that just went horribly wrong and basically took over the entire aviary.
Because they really are vicious. And then I don't
Yeah.
know if you've seen like you probably have, but have you seen the behind the scenes of like the actual pteranodon suits that they made?
Oh yeah, like they were going to use a lot more animatronics and suits in the film, which I think would have made it even creepier. Unfortunately, we didn't really get that, but nevertheless, it would have been cool.
Right, but we did get a little bit of it on that walking scene.
Yeah, where Grant kicks him, like where they're moving back and he's walking. Yeah, that's creepy because, you know, what makes them so creepy, I think, is because they got, you know, those beady little eyes and those beaks with sharp teeth, and it's basically face to face with Grant, and it's just walking slowly towards them, and it's just
so
creepy.
Creepily. Yeah, like it's got these huge wings that it's trying to like keep tucked into its sides with these tiny little legs, but it's like moving so like almost like a spider. It's so creepy.
And then of course the shot at the end when they're attacking Billy and the pteranodon turns and looks at Mr. Kirby and Grant. Oh yeah, that's just so creepy.
The pteranodons were a fantastic addition, and I wish I'm not even gonna say that I wish that we had more of them, because like we technically do at the end of the movie. They're flying off into the sunset,
which is weird because they're playing the peaceful Jurassic Park theme with these giant monsters flying that were just trying to kill them a few minutes ago. So.
Right. So I will say this, because apparently Jurassic Park 3 was originally supposed to have a pteranodon attack scene on the chopper before they leave. I will say
that was supposed to happen in the Lost World too, so it's basically something they carried over into JP3. Yeah, and still never happened.
Well,
but
Jurassic World.
Yeah, it finally did happen in Jurassic World with Ms. Ronnie's helicopter,
which was great. That was actually a very, very
they finally got it out of their system.
Yeah, they finally did. I hope that happens again in Dominion with like military chopper. But like that would have made the Jurassic Park 3 at least more memorable if they would have ended on that, right? Rather than just like everybody going off into the sunset. You know, it's actually a really cool moment where everybody like is like, okay, we need to fight these dinosaurs off. And one thing I will say one thing that I have been missing was the military versus, or at least anybody at military force or some sort of like armed security force with actual guns versus dinosaurs. Now, I think I know why they didn't do that necessarily. Because
I feel like it would have been too much like Godzilla, but that's just my personal opinion on it.
That could have been a thing. I think it's more of the idea that, especially JP3, they were trying to market this franchise towards kids.
Right. Yeah. JP3 is definitely, I would say, out of the original 3, the most aimed towards kids for sure.
Right. I mean, it is freaky. I mean, I got nightmares from it when I first watched it when I was a kid. But at the same time, they're totally aiming it towards kids. And then having guns in there, I think that was just kind of like their choice of like, no, we don't want kids, you know, like being exposed to guns. You know, that's just too scary. Dinosaurs eating each other, eating humans. That's fine. No, don't let them have guns though. I'm pretty sure that was part of the reasoning. I mean, finally we get something with guns in Jurassic World. Like, I was really happy to see that, but I'm also excited to see it on a grander scale, hopefully with like military versus dinosaurs running rampant in suburbia, you know, in Jurassic World.
Yeah, we will see.
We will see. But moving on to our next question, though, and this will be our last question here too. It seemed like we talked about it a little bit. Like the franchise really like just took off, like just jumped off a cliff when it comes to interest after 2001 because of JP3. JP3 really seemed to just really like just do the franchise in.
I've always said, whether you like the movie or not, there's no denying it killed the Jurassic franchise for over a decade. So.
Right, and it seemed the franchise was almost beyond resurrection after JP3, to be 100%.
Pretty much, yeah. Right.
Thankfully, Jurassic World happened, reinvigorated the excitement in the series. Do you think that JP3 will ever be revisited now in Jurassic media at all? Now that, you know, people are like, okay, we like the franchise again, we're reestablishing the franchise, and kind of like have that Clone Wars to the prequels idea, you know, like the Clone Wars really grew the fandom to really appreciate the prequels in a whole new light.
Right. Would I like to see them revisit it? Yes. Do I think they're going to? Honestly, no. It seems to me that they're trying to distance themselves from JP3 as much as possible. That's just the impression that I've got. So if I'm just being totally honest, I don't think that I think there's a much better chance of them going back and revisiting the time between Lost World and Jurassic Park 1 than there is to JP3. I'll if it does happen, I'll be thrilled because, like I said, there's so many questions I want answered. But the reason I don't think they'll go back and revisit JP3 is because it left so many unanswered questions. And I think, quite frankly, they just have no interest in answering any of those because there's just so many, and it would be so difficult to try and answer all of those questions that we have. So I don't see it happening. I hate to be negative about it, but that's just my honest take. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made that ultimate decision, but I will say this. I will say that there is a chance that we will go visit back, and not necessarily go back and visit JP3 itself, but at least revisit the time period around JP3. And possibly have run-ins with some of their dinosaurs, maybe the Spinosaurus, but I really think that those Jurassic Park 3 Velociraptors are going to come back at some point in the future. I mean,
I certainly hope so, because I've said before, those are my favorite raptors in the whole series. So
I mean, they're great, and then also they were specifically made mention. They're made mention of, as well as actually having cover art on the book, the Evolution of Claire.
Right.
So that there's actually a Jurassic Park 3 Velociraptor on the cover of the book, and then also in the book, it's also featured. Spoiler alert! It's also featured that they're trying to get a dinosaur. They do get a dinosaur off of Sorna, a Velociraptor off of Sorna, and they bring it to Nublar, and it is one of the JP3 dinosaurs, one of the JP3 Velociraptors. And so I don't think that JP3 itself, the story and everything, will get revisited, but I do believe that we will see elements of JP3 Sorna. I should say JP3 Isla Sorna show up in media in the future, because I think that the future of the Jurassic World franchise will have a little bit of that nostalgia trip that Universal knows that the fans want. I mean, Universal's not stupid. They know how to make money. They've been putting out tons of characters. They've been continuing to allow Mattel to just keep on pushing out these wonderful toys. I mean, they know that they're going to be making money, and I'm pretty sure that they would probably say, you know what, there is some money to be made here if we do something between JP3 and Jurassic World. I honestly think that we will see something in that regard, and I really hope that has something to do with Wu and his behind-the-scenes, off-the-grid experimentation and cloning.
Yeah, that's what I've said. Is I think what would be cool is if they could do like a short mini series over the time before JP3, where he goes back to Sorna in the embryonic building, and is doing all these illegal experiments with dinosaurs that aren't on Engine's list. Like, we could see the creation of the Ankylosaurus, the Ceratosaurus, Corythosaurus, Spinosaurus. Mm-hmm. What happened with the JP3 Pteranodons? Like, there's so much stuff they could do, but whether or not it actually happens is a whole other story.
Right. And moving forward, I mean, we're gonna get a whole lot of information coming out after Dominion. I really hope. I mean, honestly, I do say I expect it, but if I say that right now and then it happens and then Jurassic World Dominion comes out and everybody's going to go like, don't listen to Dino Park Media, they're a bunch of liars, so but I mean,
well, Trevorrow has said, this movie will be a culmination of all 6 movies, so hopefully there will be at least some answers or references to JP3.
Right, but I mean, I think that Beyond Dominion, though, is really what I'm looking forward to. I think that Beyond Dominion, we will have opportunities to look back in the franchise, and namely look back at some of the original trilogy, at JP1, at The Lost World, at Jurassic Park 3, and I think that they will be able to take tidbits out of each one of those movies in order to be able to focus on, in order to create video games, in order to create maybe future spin-off movies, but particularly TV shows. I honestly think that we're going to be seeing something like that in the future. But unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today, Noah. I really appreciate you being on the show today, being on the channel, and being able to talk about JP3 in a very honest light. But is there any last words that you wanted to say to everybody before we sign off here?
like I said, just thanks again for having me. It's such an honor to be on. And for all the Jurassic fans listening, let me know in the comments what you think of JP3, because I know it's a very divided film in the franchise, and I just look forward to seeing what everyone has to say about it. And uh, feel free to follow me on Instagram, Jurassic Fantastic, where I post a bunch of stuff about Dino media and Paleo media, including the Jurassic franchise. And yeah, that's it.
Very good, very good. Well, once again, Noah, thank you so much for joining me today. And for everybody listening, go ahead and make sure to follow Noah Meskimen, specifically Jurassic Fantastic on Instagram. He's got tons of great content. And then also, make sure to subscribe to Dino Park Media. We want to make sure that this is a great opportunity for the entire Jurassic fandom to be able to come together and to be able to just have fun, be able to geek out together. That's really what we're trying to do. But guys, thank you so much for watching today. Have a great rest of your day, and make sure that you know you are loved.